I wonder, is it weird that I don't have makeup on while I'm filming this? It might be. Let me go put on some makeup. Alright, I am back, ready to go. This is my makeup look. It's super simple. Actually, I should have blended that a little more. Whatever. Doesn't matter. It is time for another city in review, and this time it's going to be about Pittsburgh. The first city in review that I did was on Philadelphia, and there are two parts to that. So if you haven't watched that, I will link part one in the cards right over there and both parts in the description box below. So if you're interested in hearing my recommendations, thoughts about Pittsburgh, keep on watching. This one might be a long video as well, so it's probably going to be split into two parts. It has been a while since I've been in Pittsburgh. I was in Pittsburgh at the end of August till mid-September, so it's been about a month. I'm gonna try my best to do this. It was about 2.5 weeks that I was there. Honestly, it was too much time to stay in Pittsburgh. There was some like funky reasoning as to why I told myself to just stay in Pittsburgh for that long, and that's what I did. So let's move past that reason, okay? It doesn't really matter. If you were to go visit Pittsburgh and not do a whole like work from home situation like I do, a week, half a week is good enough for Pittsburgh. The accurate nickname for Pittsburgh is the Burgh. But when I was first driving into the city, so I first drove into Pittsburgh and it was 9 p.m., almost 10 p.m. And the first thought that came into my mind was, welcome to Pitty. And so that's what I called Pittsburgh for the rest of my time there. I called it Pitty. It sounds unfortunate. It reminds me of an armpit, but I thought it was a cute nickname for Pittsburgh. I'm still gonna call it Pitty because I think it's much better than the Burgh, but just so you know, the proper nickname is called the Burgh. Driving here is insane. I spent maybe like 10% of my time just lost. And that's because a couple things. One, Pittsburgh is much hillier than I expected. Unless you're in proper Pittsburgh, everything else is quite mountainous. They have a lot of lanes, and the lanes go every single direction. So it's like you'll have 3 lanes and it'll split off, like the right lane goes right, left lane goes left, and the center lane goes center. However, if this is a turn only lane, the signal to get that information doesn't come soon enough. So I spent most of my time just like stuck in turn only lanes, and I kept on turning and turning and turning. It was very frustrating, but I eventually got to where I needed to go, so that's good. If you're driving at night in Pittsburgh, you have to be careful, because they also have situations where it's like 5 lanes total and it's 3 lanes that it's going one direction, 2 lanes coming this way, but then all of a sudden this lane goes down and then now you're stuck with 4 lanes. One time I was stuck in this lane and this outside lane, and I thought I could just like keep on going, but all of a sudden this lane disappeared and I ended up being in this lane. It was a little bit terrifying. I'm so glad that there was nobody in oncoming traffic, and the driver behind me kept on honking to let me know that I was in the bad lane, and that person actually waited for me to get back to the right lane. So whew, thank you for good people. If there was a car there in oncoming traffic, I would have been gone. Their lanes are quite narrow. It's much narrower than Boston, which is weird to say because Boston is a very, very compact city. Let's say that's the road. That's a double lane right there, and you're at a light. This lane that's going straight will stop right there, but this lane that's turn only, you stop right there. And that's just because when cars are turning this way, they won't hit the front of your car. That was the first time I've ever seen that, where the turning lane is a little behind the lane that's going forward. And actually, it's been something that I have been seeing a lot more in, well, also in Nashville. I've seen it a little bit in Columbus, Ohio. So it might be a Midwestern thing. I don't know. The hills are really, really steep as well. So the cars, when they're waiting, it's terrifying. I have a little clip over here, and I thought these cars were just like parked on the street, and I was like, well, that's kind of terrifying because I don't like parking on hills anyways. And then I realized that that was a street that people actually drove on, and cars were going up really, really slowly, going down really, really slowly, and it's just because the hill is so steep. I was terrified just even seeing that. I was like, I hope I never have to go on a hill like that, which thankfully I didn't. To just, whoo, I hate the feeling of being parked and you're going up a hill, because you have to lurch back in order to drive forward, and that just makes my heart sink. There are more than 400 bridges in Pittsburgh, and they're really, really pretty. Each bridge is different, even with the Three Sisters, and they're called Three Sisters because they're all yellow and look pretty similar. Even with the Three Sisters, they have different designs on them. So if you really wanted to take the time to walk across each bridge, take photos, it's totally possible. I did not though, because Pittsburgh, this is my next point. Pittsburgh is humid and hot AF in the summer slash really, 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 really early fall. Like September should be considered fall, right? September, October, November, yeah, and then December's winter. Also, while you are in Pittsburgh, there is no point in trusting the weather apps. I was there for 2.5 weeks, and out of that entire time, the weather apps had accurately predicted the weather for 2 of those days. Because like the weather app will be like, oh, it's gonna rain this entire week. And I would just be waiting for the rain, and it would never come, and it would be hot. And I'd be like, how is this possible? What are you doing to me? Don't trust the weather apps if you're in Pittsburgh. Just look outside before you're about to head out and guess. So parking in Pittsburgh, super, super easy, and there's so much parking available. There was only one time when I was like, this was my location, and I ended up parking like a 10-minute walk away. Not that bad at all. For some sections where you have to pay at the parking machine, they have some rules. It's like, you can't park here if there are events. And then in your head, you're like, how do I know that there's an event going on? Well, fortunately, the city has been very nice to like post a calendar of events. So all you have to do is look on that calendar and then decide if you need to move your car or not. I had to Google how to read their regular like non-parking meter parking. I had to Google how to read these signs. So if you have a permit, you get free parking. Otherwise, it's 1 hour between 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. If not, you don't have a time limit on your parking. So I think I'm good. Time for my very, very crude map. Are you ready? I said this back in my Philadelphia City in Review, is I'm just trying to map out the things that I gravitated towards when entering in a city and remembering things. So you're probably looking at this and you're like, that's not super informative. Well, we'll get into it, okay? All the way over here is Philadelphia. You come in below this river if you're coming in from Philadelphia. My first Airbnb was actually down here in Castle Shannon, and it has a bunch of hills and mountains over there. And then my second Airbnb was kind of close to Castle Shannon, 20 minutes away in this area called Crafton. If you look at maps online, those 2 places where I stayed for my Airbnb look a little bit outside of Pittsburgh, but everything is super close to one another. I think from both places it took me maybe 15-20 minutes to get to downtown, so it's not that bad at all. There are 3 rivers, and it looks like a Y. This part of the river actually goes like that, but I'm not the best drawer. This is my best, okay? So this river is called Ohio River. This one is the, my pronunciation might be really wrong, Allegheny River. And then this one is the Monongahela. Monongahela. I'm gonna go with that. Monongahela River. And they just meet right here. And in this corner is Point State Park. It's a beautiful place. Highly recommend if you ever go there. They have this huge fountain over there, and it has a very like big ring right around it. So if it's really hot and you have a swimsuit, or you know, you're in a sports bra, basically if you want to sunbathe, you can sunbathe over there. I've seen a couple of people do that. There are a lot of boats that hang out right in the center over here. Like even if you're at Point State Park and you want to walk into the river, you can just do it. It's, I don't know, it's so weird. It's like you just walk down these steps and then you can just wade into the river. So Point State Park is at the very, very tip of downtown Pittsburgh, which is super, super boring. There are, I think, 2 restaurants that I would recommend over there, but otherwise there's really nothing over there. And I've walked down many of those streets and I'm like, oh, you know what is in downtown though? They do have theater. So if you do go to a theater show, a drama, a play or something like that, that is where you'll be. We're gonna go north of downtown. We're up in this area called Strip District, and if you watched my last video, the section where I was at, where I was exploring international markets, that's where Strip District is. They've got funky hours, like they're open from, I think it's like 11 to 3 or 4, and then they open at 6 maybe. Yeah, so check hours before you go to Strip District. Weird thing is, like, a lot of people when I'm asking them about Pittsburgh, they're like, oh, head to Strip District, it's really cool. I don't know. I guess this just shows that everybody has a different definition of cool and what to do, because in Strip District I felt like it was a lot more of grocery shopping. So if you live there, yes, that's where you would go for grocery shopping for your international goods. But if you're like visiting there, there really isn't much in Strip District. We're gonna keep on going north-ish. We head to this area called Lawrenceville, and Lawrenceville is actually much bigger than this area. I would say it's the boutique area. There's not a lot of shops in Lawrenceville, but it has the most shops of any area in Pittsburgh. Does that make sense? There's no Target, there's no Nordstrom Rack, there's no mall in like all of the central part of Pittsburgh. If you wanted to go to the mall, you have to come down here, or you have to go all the way up here. So Lawrenceville is where you would want to go if you want to do some minimal shopping. We have this region not drawn to scale. Look, I wrote here, note, definitely not up to scale. So in this neighborhood of Oakland, you get the 2 famous institutions in Pittsburgh, which is University of Pittsburgh, aka Pitt, and Carnegie Mellon University, aka CMU. And so in there, there's like a lot of like beautiful places. You can go to the Cathy, or the Cathedral of Learning. It is part of Pitt, and I have a video only about Cathedral of Learning. I will link that right over there. If you're really into museums, they have a bunch of museums down there. A lot of like Carnegie stuff, because Andrew Carnegie is from Pittsburgh, so he's got a lot of stuff there. Not just Carnegie Mellon, but he's got a lot of museums and libraries all over there. So if you're into that stuff, that's where you want to hang out. And then if you go like a little bit south of Lawrenceville, but maybe over here, is an area called Squirrel Hill. I mentioned Squirrel Hill in my last video about the architecture. Unfortunately, I do not have any video or images of the architecture. It's just beautiful there. And if you want Asian food, that is where you go. They have a couple options over there. It wasn't too bad either, so hey. If you notice over here, I did not name it. I do not know what the neighborhood is called. I just called it the other side. But near here we have the Andy Warhol Museum, which I'm going to talk about later in the City in Review. That's a great place to go check out. There is the PNC Stadium, which is where the, oh crap, Pittsburgh, their football team is called the Jaguars? Let me check. Steelers. It's where the Steelers play, and it's where the, what's their baseball team? Pirates. Okay, so yeah, so we have the PNC Stadium where the Pittsburgh, I already forgot again. Pittsburgh Pirates and the Pittsburgh Steelers play over there. And then we also have Carnegie Science Museum. There's a little waterway area here where if you walk there at night, it's really, really pretty because you get to look to, well, you look this direction and you see all these bridges and there's just lights everywhere that bounce off the water. It's super pretty. Let's go down to the south area. So south area, there really isn't much over here. There are a couple like food restaurants, restaurant places. I didn't go too many. You do have some amazing vantage points from the south. The first one I would recommend is the West End Overlook, and the second one is the Mount Washington Overlook. And then over here we have an area called Southside Flats, and I almost, how would I describe it? It's like the Brooklyn of Pittsburgh, I would say. It's hipstery, it's new and upcoming. There's a huge like rock climbing place down there. You just get like a more grungy, hippie feel down there. Yeah. All right, I think it is time for a pause because this video is getting way too long. So yeah, next time we will continue with part 2. I'll see you guys later.